is a new year, and the House is back in session. But top of mind, as we mentioned last night, a new government funding bill. It looks like there may be a deal, or is there? Let's bring my guest tonight, the Congresswoman for Virginia's 7th Congressional District, Abigail Spanberger, up late with me tonight here on the Final Five. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So this is rare where we have all of the congressional leaders say, we have a framework for a deal. We've not been at this point where there's a full year spending package, yet this is far from a done deal.
We are walking in the right direction. There are just many steps before us. And so it's a precarious time. And certainly as somebody who represents tens of thousands of federal employees and government contractors and small businesses and nonprofits that are impacted with even so much as a threat of a government shutdown, I am focused on these very next precarious steps. So what comes next is we've got a deal, bipartisan, Democrats and Republicans, House and Senate. It's consistent with the Fiscal Responsibility Act, the deal that we struck earlier, I guess, last year. And but now it's building out the full funding bill, ensuring that the bill can pass the House with the support that it needs, move to the Senate, garner the support that it needs, and get to the president's desk. And it needs to do that before the 19th of January.
There was a two-tiered solution where we got to this point where we avoided the government shutdown in December under new Speaker Johnson's leadership here. As you looked at it, I know clearly the Republicans are in charge. Was that the best deal on the table at the time to approach this way with two different benchmarks?
So ultimately, that was a continuing resolution. So continuing with current government spending. What they did, they being the Speaker, when he put the bill forward, was have 2 points in time when funding would run out. It was gimmicky. It didn't make a lot of sense. But my goal as somebody who wants to see the government function was to actually ensure government funding. What it means is that we face the potential for a partial shutdown as of the 19th and then a full shutdown as of the beginning of February. My goal, my priority, and what I think should be the priority of every member of Congress is to avoid both a full and a partial shutdown and have funding bills through before we get to the 19th. And if there's any delay there, to do another short-term continuing resolution so that there is no gap in funding.
Yet today, Mitch McConnell said that there may need to be another CR at this point, which certainly stoked the ire of many within his party on the far right flank.
The continuing resolution, I mean, really, for me, it comes down to we have to fund the government. I would love for it to be a full funding bill so that everybody, certainly across the 7th District, knows that we are funded throughout the remainder of FY24. If we have to do a short-term continuing resolution, certainly I will vote for it without hesitation. But it is something that does bring the ire of some folks, particularly across the aisle.
There are people who have said, and this has been the tune for many Republicans, is they say no government funding bill unless we close the border, we do border security, we spend money on that. Regardless, talk about what a government shutdown would mean, not just for your district, but for people across the Commonwealth, because you have this large concentration. I know the government is a bad word. It's a 4-letter word for a lot of people. I understand that, but there's an avalanche of effects with even a partial government shutdown.
Well, I always like to talk about the impacts of on my constituents first. But in this case, because you brought up the frame in which so many of my colleagues, predominantly Republicans, are talking about this, saying, we have a crisis at the border. Until we fix it, we need to shut down the government. OK, we do have a crisis at the border. We have to have policy adjustments. We absolutely have to fund our border security. But what my colleagues who would shut down the government are saying is that they do not want to fund border security. They do not want to fund border patrol agents. That means every single individual working at the southern border, in the case of a full government shutdown, would not be getting paid. The support that they need for the supplies, for the tools, for their capacity would not be there. TSA agents would be working without getting paid. Prison guards working without getting paid. FBI, tasked with ensuring that they are protecting the homeland from terrorist threats, would be working without getting paid. No new contracts, no new anything. It is absolutely outrageous that anyone would think that it is in the best interest of the United States for us to have a government shutdown. And I used to work in the national security space. I was a CIA officer. I have been overseas at tables where we go around in a circle and say who you're meeting with. Oh, I report on this terrorist organization, or I'm reporting on this nuclear program, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, who's an essential employee because we might face a government shutdown. The realities of the day-to-day of keeping the American people safe, of protecting our country, means that we need a functioning government. And for anyone who wants to improve upon, strengthen our border security, reform our immigration laws, all of which I want to do, and a pitch for a great bill called the Dignity Act, bipartisan, border security improvements, and immigration reform, they need to focus on the policy, because shutting down the government does not eliminate the challenges or the problems we face. It just makes them that much harder to go after. And for the record, these folks can play these games because in the case of a government shutdown, members of Congress still get paid. That should horrify every single one of your viewers, but that's why they get to throw those threats around so easily. So I am focused on this because it's a national security priority, but also because the people I represent, who are proud public servants, who work across the board in public service as federal employees or as contractors, and those who support the greater community, Virginians get hurt when we have a government shutdown, and it is bad for our country.
Well, we know right now, too, just with the balance of power, which will get a little slimmer for Republicans in the coming weeks, there has to be, I know there are people like you who have worked. I mean, I think about you and Chip Roy working on the deal to outlaw stock trades for members of Congress and their families. There is a need for some sort of work across the aisle, no matter how much of a boogeyman that may be for certain people. But regardless, I have to leave it at that. Congresswoman Spanberger, good to see you again.
Thanks for having me on. And everybody stay safe with the weather, please.
No kidding. Final Five is back after this.